Welcome to the On Your Mind podcast, where we are changing the mental health narrative, bringing hope and solutions. Here's your host, Timothy J. Hayes, psychologist.
Kelley Edwards is a 500-hour Yoga Alliance certified instructor with over a decade of practice and continuing education in many styles, including gentle and chair, power, yin and restorative, myofascial release, therapeutics, and meditation styles like mindfulness and yoga nidra. She is passionate about leading classes and sessions that are safe and accessible for everyone, while challenging the way you think about yourself and what you're capable of. So, Kelley, welcome. Thanks for joining us here this morning. It's good to see you.
Thanks, Dr. Tim. Good to see you too.
I was hoping you could start us off by letting us know a little bit about how you got into the work you do and what drives your passion for it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I really feel like all of my life experiences have played into what I'm doing. It started when I was very young. My parents got me into dance classes, tumbling, gymnastics. Movement was very important to me when I was younger, and my parents cultivated a love and respect for my body, for movement, for what I'm capable of doing. So at a young age, I learned to kind of turn off the mind and get into the body a bit more. And the body was always guiding me, leading me in the right direction. Fast forward to college, I got my degree, my bachelor's degree in psychology from Illinois State. And I started to work on a residential unit for adolescent teen males who had drug abuse issues, mental health issues, family troubles. And we had 3 different units. And depending on which unit they went into was like the duration of their program and how kind of serious what they were going through was. So they would have like a 1-month program, 3 months, or 6 months. I started working during the day, and I was helping to lead the group with the open discussions, the lecturing. We were teaching the kids, how to take care of themselves, good nutrition, hydration, proper sleep. All of that stuff was important. But I just felt like we were like regurgitating the same information again and again to all of these individuals. And it felt like too much of like a blanket statement to kind of help these teens. So I, at that time, on my own, started to practice yoga. I have a heart problem that stopped me from like working out harder than what I was doing. So I was running, I was doing like weight training, strength training, and my heart just was telling me to stop. Couldn't handle it as much as I used to. So I got into yoga. I needed that movement still. I needed some kind of cardio. I needed some kind of strength, but on a less intense level. And I just fell in love with yoga. I had a Rodney Yee VHS tape that I would play again and again and again in my apartment. And it became my favorite part of the day. When I went to work, I would try to implement some of the breathing exercises I was learning, some of the movements, some of the stretches. And I ended up starting like a little mini morning class for whoever wanted to attend. So the boys were responsible for getting themselves up. And if they wanted to, they can wake up 20 minutes earlier and do some breathing, do some yoga with me. And it was the boys that were waking up and doing yoga, doing the breath work, that we started to see more changes in them, in the group work, in the discussions, and them wanting to take care of themselves beyond what we were teaching them. Like they started to connect back again with themselves, and like self with a capital S instead of just like the egoic self. And that was eye-opening to me because I had felt that change within me as well, But again, I come from a background of movement, of connecting with my body. So I was just like, okay, I'm just reconnecting again with me. But to see it now in other people was like, okay, there's something to this. Like yoga works. Yoga works somehow. I called up my dad. I told him, I'm teaching yoga. I'm seeing change. This is my favorite part of my job, my favorite part of my day. And he said, find a way to make this your full-time gig. Like, this is what you should be doing. Find a way to make it work, make it be your career, your passion. So I did. I went to my 200-hour training up in Libertyville, Illinois with Blue Sun Yoga. Wendy Dahl was my teacher. And in that training, the stuff that I was feeling internally, like words were put to it. There was like research, science was backing the stuff that I was feeling in my own body. So again, it was just reiterated that like, there is something to this. This is working. It's not just me. This can have an effect everywhere. So I started to work privately with people. I very quickly grew public classes. And I've since continued my education with yoga, where I got my 500-hour certification. And now I'm working towards my 1,000-hour certification as well. And what these mean, if you're a 200-hour trained yoga teacher, you can go and teach public classes or private clients. It's like your foundational education in yoga. The 500-hour means that now you can train other people how to be yoga teachers. There's an understanding that you've deepened your education. You've gone into the many layers of anatomy, of our philosophy, of our breath work, of mental health and trauma. So now you're able to train other people to be yoga teachers. And then the 1,000-hour that I'm working towards will allow me to become a yoga therapeutic specialist, which means that I can start working more in healthcare settings and kind of bridge the gap between like yoga public classes, that breath work, the asanas that we're familiar with as a general population, and now bridge it into more of the medical healthcare setting as well. So I can be working with people who are rehabbing from injury. I'm going deeper into meditation, yin work, and trauma for the mental health aspect. There's so many modules that I can take with the school that I'm going through. So there's like women's health, there's traditional Chinese medicine, there's sports medicine, there's cancer modules. So it really is a wherever you kind of want to go into, whatever you want your like niche to be, you have many pathways with yoga medicine. That's the school I'm going through right now to become 1,000-hour certified. What I do now, when I do my private sessions, when I do my public classes, when I'm doing my teacher training, the main theme is coming back to the power you have within. In my life, in my experience, I've seen a lot of giving power away, going to doctors, going to therapists, going to yoga teachers, going to whoever, and kind of saying, I have this problem, please tell me what to do. And then we take that person's solution and think like, okay, this has to be it for me. But again, like we're all individuals, we're all different. There are many different pathways that we can come back home to ourselves. And the yoga, the asana, the breath work is my vehicle to get people feeling comfortable with themselves, safe again in their own bodies, and remembering that we're all in this together. Like we're not alone. We're all walking through struggles together. Maybe it's not exactly the same, but through my teachings, when you get more comfortable with yourself, when you build up that confidence and that self-esteem again, when you get out of the brain and back into the heart and the body, you're really led on a more clear path. So I always say, like, get out of the brain and into the heart, get out of the brain, get into the body. To me, the body is more intelligent than the brain. And so when I'm teaching, that's what I'm trying to get across to my students, is that this up here, this brain up here is going to tell you a lot of things that you're doing right, that you're doing wrong, what you could be doing better. But the body tells you the truth. And how do I start to quiet this chatter up here and get more in tune to the truth down here in the heart and in the body?
So you've said the word asana a couple times. Would you define that for our audience, please?
So asana means posture or poses. So when we think of yoga as a general population, that's probably what we're thinking of, is like downward facing dog, tree pose, mountain. Those are all asanas, are postures that we take within the body.
What have you found in terms of people, especially those who've had trauma, responding to different postures?
So with asanas, and it depends on, the type of trauma that they're coming with. So with anxiety, if their trauma has led to anxious thoughts, anxiety, overwhelm, like that, when we do poses, we don't want to do anything quick and fast and okay, onto this, because then we're just increasing those feelings of anxiety within the student. So if it's anxiousness that they're coming with, we want to be slowing it down, spending 5 to 10 breaths in poses, deep diaphragmatic breath, because that can stimulate the vagus nerve, which helps to calm the nervous system. So it's the like increases like. If I'm anxious, the last thing I want to do is go, do more. I want to settle down. If it's depression, which comes from a feeling of lack or regret or shame, that can make us feel kind of heavy energetically in the body. Less motivation, not wanting to do anything. If you're depressed, I want to lay in bed. I want to cover up. I don't want to be seen. So with depression, if that's where our trauma is coming from, it's kind of the opposite of anxiety. We want to start doing a bit more, moving, not very fast, because that can feel overwhelming if we're coming from a state of depression, but to get the body fluids, the energy unstuck. Anything that's stagnant, we want to try moving gently again through the body. So doing stuff like yin yoga, restorative yoga, really great for depression and anxiety if that's coming from trauma. And one of the most pivotal things that I learned in my studies was that we're more animal than we realize we are. And this is where my whole ideology of like the body is smarter than the brain comes from. The brain can tell us anything. It can dramatize. It can go into the future. It can go into the past. It can create a moment of time that doesn't even exist. But the body lives moment to moment. And I read the book, Waking the Tiger by Peter Levine.
Right.
And have you read that one before?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for years, I would recommend that to patients who've had trauma because it is one of the series of exercises in there that a lot of people have found helps them literally get back into an awareness of the connection to their body. And
yeah, the example that he has in the book of the deer shaking after an attack, after a traumatic moment. You see a deer shaking, and then all of a sudden the shaking stops and the deer goes on with her day. We too have that same trauma response where we go through a cycle of something traumatic happens. We need to shake, we need to cry, we need to express whatever that energy is that's going on within us. And then the trauma cycle completes and we can go on about our day. Just like the deer. The deer doesn't reflect back 5 days later like, oh my God, what did I do with that trauma response? Did I do the right thing? What did I do to deserve that? The deer doesn't think about that because it has completed its trauma response by honoring the intelligence of the body, by needing to shake and express that energy. We are the same. We have a traumatic experience. We need to release that energy, but that's where we have the dysfunction now as humans. We stop that trauma.
Well, and the as he points out in that book and several others, the Western medical model wants to just medicate that, bind the person on straps on a gurney and give them a tranquilizer and stop all of that. And his model that he's seen a lot of good results with says that's just locking the trauma in. And he's had his own trauma experience where he had the awareness because he'd been studying trauma and knew how to let himself relax through the shaking and the crying. And so,
yeah.
And he has, he has a series of books. The Waking the Tiger is just one of them. The most recent one, I think it's In an Unspoken Voice, is the most recent book by Peter Levine. But he's been doing excellent trauma work with a lot of other good people for a long time now. And I'm, encouraged when I find people like you and quite young people, to be honest, moving into this with the awareness that this process of stretching, breathing, yoga poses, combining the physical movement and body awareness with a therapeutic approach is really, really key. Very powerful in its own right, but really key for some people who just can't make progress by sitting and talking about their thoughts and emotions and past traumas. They just get stuck in a loop.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why there's so much that's happening with somatic forms of therapy and therapeutic yoga. And so is there you were starting to tell some stories about when you were working in an inpatient unit, and I believe you said that those young people, those teens, had drug and alcohol issues.
Mm-hmm.
And when you found the people who chose to get up and do the breathing and do the stretching or the yoga poses, they started making more progress in their work. Mm-hmm. Now, as somebody who's, had to get a doctorate and study a little bit about science, what we understand there is that's something where you don't know, did they get better because they did that work, or did they get better because they were the ones that had it in them to get up on their own and try something new? Are you aware of studies? You were talking about different studies in science about this, where it works more even if people haven't self-selected for yoga.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I think about too is, and I think I see it showing up even now currently, where it really is up to the person wanting to make the change. Like, I can talk until I'm blue in the face in front of a crowd of people, but it's up to the individual to want to get better. I can't force anyone into any of this. I can say all the benefits, all the things that they'll experience, but again, like, the power is in their hands on what they want to change, and how they want to heal and get better. As far as specific studies go, I'll have to go back into my manuals that I have and see what I've got as far as like specific authors and whatnot and what studies. But with yoga medicine, the school that I'm doing my 1,000 hours with, they have a yoga research lab where they are conducting experiments now, research studies, to see exactly what it is that is creating change in people that are practicing yoga and breath work and meditation. There are people out there doing the work to take out those other factors. But with what I saw on the unit, it wasn't as reactionary of a space anymore. And like, we were taught how to protect ourselves, how to like subdue someone. We were taught, proper ways to like grab and take hands behind their back if one of the kids got crazy. And I saw other coworkers of mine get attacked or tables flipped, and that was happening less and less. The boys fighting with each other was happening like less and less with the students that were waking up and doing yoga with me. So it was like it added a moment of like pause. And again, that's where to me, it's like they're getting out of their brain into their body, because their brain might hear something and say, I want to say this back to you, or I want to attack you now. But because they were sitting with me, doing poses, getting into their bodies, listening to the messages, the sensations, they hear something, they have a moment where it's like, brain wants to do this, but body's like, it's not that big of a deal. We don't need to respond to that. We don't need to react to that. And then they could go about their day without having a big blow up anymore. So that for me is what I saw. There was that moment of, do I need to engage? Body says I don't need to engage. I'm not going to engage.
Well, that's real powerful, especially if you can start doing that with people in their teens and train them to, as you were talking about with the deep breath work and the vagus nerve, this whole calming down the system to the parasympathetic response, that rest and digest, as opposed to the fight or flight.
Yep.
Which, so much of our culture, when we haven't learned the connection between the power of our thoughts to make our body believe we're in danger when we're not, and the way to break that cycle, and one of the best ones, as you know, is the movement, whether it's stretching or the yoga, if you combine the breathing and the postures. And as we know, when we're younger, we learn faster. So the earlier we can get this into someone's routine, the more readily they learn, and they start to feel that connection that's already there, but they'll bring the attention of the mind to it, and they can hold on to it longer.
Yeah. It's that question of, is this real? Is this the truth? Anytime I hear something from the ego, from the brain, is that my reality? Is that the perspective that I want to have? And I think we get too caught up in this, where we think every thought that we have is permanent, is the truth, is exactly how I am. And one of my favorite yoga teachers, Baba Ram Das is his name. And he has a saying where it's not like, I am depressed. He says it, oh, look at that depression,
right,
as if it's something like walking by, passing through. Because just because I'm having a moment where I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling upset, it doesn't mean that this is forever. It doesn't mean that this is now who I am and the qualities that I'm going to hold for the rest of my life. It's all temporary. And again, when I read that, that was something that was like, wow. So what's going on in my head, I might not have to listen to. That might not actually be the truth or how I'm actually feeling. And even picking up on other people's energies or moods or opinions, that stuff can all be learned and unlearned. And again, in my experience, the more that I've gotten into the body, which is a quieter voice, and we really have to pay attention to find it and listen to it, but that has always led me down the right path, a clear path with less fear, with less anxiety. There's like a trust that things will work out when I move from my body instead of my brain. My brain is always like, well, this could happen. And what about this fear that you have? And don't forget about that. And it's like, I don't need to pay attention to all that all of the time. It's not who I truly am.
So do you have any other stories, any specific examples of people who've had tremendous shifts from a place of trauma or anxiety or depression that you want to share?
Well, growing up, my older sister, my younger brother, and even me, we've all suffered from anxiety and from depression. I have always loved more holistic approaches. So while my brother and sister decided to go on medication, I wanted to try to figure it out, heal myself more on my own with the movement. And again, it was because I was younger and my parents were just like, dance, gymnastics, tumbling. I was always body knows best, body knows best. And to me, and I'm not saying anything against medication, I think for some people, it definitely helps them. There are so many benefits to Western medicine and very, very helpful. But for me personally, I didn't want to take that route. so I use yoga, breath work, meditation, journaling to heal myself, the anxiety, the depression, and even body dysmorphia I suffer from as well. So when I look in the mirror, I don't see what everyone else sees. I see kind of like a funhouse mirror where I think I'm bigger or different looking than I actually am. And it's been my practice on the mat, making me realize that it doesn't matter what I look like. Look at what I'm capable of. Look at how strong my body is. Look at how limber I am. Look at these crazy things that I can do. That's the stuff. It feels good. Who cares what it looks like? It feels good. That's the lesson I've learned. So myself, I have helped to heal from trauma. I also have women's health issues. So I have endometriosis and PCOS. So very painful, chronic inflammation that I deal with, chronic fatigue. And again, using stuff like yoga, like breath work, meditation, and especially doing stuff through the traditional Chinese medicine lens, that has helped me immensely with the health issues that I struggle with. So I have used it to heal myself, to help my own trauma. And with private clients that I deal with, it's quite amazing. They hire me because they've got something that has been going on in their bodies. They have an injury or their posture has been poor for many, many years. Now they're getting bone spurs. Things are uncomfortable. And I go in working with them to help them feel more comfortable in their bodies. And one woman that I'm working with right now, very poor posture. She's got a bone spur on one of her shoulders. So like she can't lift her arm as much. It's uncomfortable. Just simply by getting her shoulders up, back, and down, just simply by feeling her core engaged to get taller through the spine. The stuff that she talks about with me through our sessions, it's kind of like a little therapy session. And over the time, as her posture has gotten taller and she seems to be more proud of like who she is, it's coming out energetically. And she's talking to me and releasing things that have been weighing her down. And then she gets into this posture. It's incredible to see the connection, body, mind, energy. She looks better physically because her posture is taller. She's exuding this more confident energy, and her mind is clearer because of the work that we've done.
Wonderful. Yeah, there are a lot of stories about people who have had whatever form of stress and tension that they carry in the body, and they carry it there so long that it starts to either disrupt the functioning of the body or disrupt the posture. And then it, people talk about it somehow getting crystallized, since the body's just energy anyway. Some wonderful stuff you might, and when you were mentioning the issues that you struggle with, the chronic fatigue and the endometriosis, et cetera, it made me think of the newest book by Dr. Joe Dispenza, You Are the Placebo. Mm-hmm. And Suggestible You by Eric Vance is another book about the placebo effect and the power of the mind, that through the lens of Western medicine, placebo has been looked at as a quirk, as some random thing. But people like Bruce Lipton started looking at it and saying, why don't we give it a name with more reverence, like the belief effect? Why don't we study it as one of the more powerful influences on our physiology? And, these three books, the Bruce Lipton book, Biology of Belief, and Eric Vance's book, Suggestible You, and now Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, You Are the Placebo, are wonderful resources for people. And in the most recent one with Dr. Dispenza, the whole thing is that he's talking so thoroughly about the science. And literally people can follow along in that book and start to think about what they're already doing and get relief. Like with Dr. John Sarno's books, people can read his books on the effect of mental emotional stress on back pain and start to feel relief from back pain. just by reading the book and understanding what they're doing in connection with their thoughts getting lodged into the muscular tension in the body, et cetera.
Yeah, with all of the health struggles that I have gone through, I'm not perfect. I'm not saying that by any means. I do feel like I have a good path in front of me, but I stray off of it from time to time. And when I've strayed off and I forget that my body is trying to help me, my body's always on my side, I start to get angry. Why do you feel this way, body? Why do you have to hurt? Why is this happening? Why is this continuing? I'm trying. Why? But through my education, I did a module on the aging process. And we were learning about how all of these things, as we start to age and get older, again, we look at it as like, why is my body breaking down? Why is this happening? But it's actually stuff that's happening in the body to protect you. So again, bone spurs, I brought that up. We get angry. Why is this happening? Well, you've been working improperly in this joint in the body for so long. Now the body thinks that that's your norm. So it's going to build up more bone to support what you're overworking, overstressing. So we can get mad at that bone spur for being there, but the body is trying to help us out because of the way that we've been living and moving. And in my health issues, when I can remember that, like, okay, this sucks that this is going on. I hate that I'm in pain, but my body is telling me something. My body is trying to heal me. My body is trying to bring me back into balance. How can I get out of my own way and support its natural healing function? That has been pivotal to me, that perspective change of why is this happening to me? And what can I learn from this?
Well, and the difference in the questioning of from an angry perspective, I'm asking my body, why are you doing this to me and what's wrong? And I'm demanding an answer and I want it to just stop what it's doing. As opposed to a questioning that's open and soft and curious. Mm-hmm. Oh, what is it you're trying to tell me? Oh, as you were just saying, there's a wisdom in you that I've learned over the years. And if you're in pain, maybe you're trying to make my ears grow. So I listen and correct something. And if I approach it with the questioning that isn't demanding an answer right now, but is leaving myself open, then magic can happen. Literal, with seemingly magical responses, insights, intuitions, answers, solutions, shifts in the energy flow and the pain. Yep. And we see it over and over and over again in sessions where people are willing to put the conscious logical mind and its demand for an instant solid answer aside and stay open to questioning and then getting feedback from the system.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Anytime I'm teaching a class, a few times during the class, I'll say, be curious about the sensations that you're feeling. If this pose is tough for you, why do you think that is? Not just like, oh, this is tough and I shouldn't do it anymore. But what is going on today, right now, because we're different moment to moment, day to day. But what is going on right now that you can explore, that you can be compassionate towards, no judgment about what you're feeling, but curiosity about what you're feeling. And the feedback I get from my classes just, oh man, you said exactly what I needed to hear today. You got me right into, I was just about to judge my shoulder feeling this way. And then you said, be curious about your sensations. And I was like, okay, body, let me talk to you. What is going on? And it's creating, again, that stronger relationship to your true self.
Excellent. So currently in the way your life is set up now and your work is set up now, are you doing just private practice? Are you doing something in an institution? What's your work now?
So I traveled to 4 different places, 4 different studios in the area here where I have public classes, and I teach, I think right now it's 15 public classes a week. Most of them are live now in person, but I do also do Zoom classes as well. So if someone is in a different state, a different area, they can just get onto Zoom and we can practice together. So I have my public classes. I have private sessions. I have an online studio as well, an on-demand studio where I film classes and then I put it onto the website. So then people can pay for a subscription, sign up, log in, and then it's just a full library. I think right now I have over 100 classes on the website now, and anything from pranayama, which is our breath work, yin classes, power classes, meditations, yoga nidras, restorative, myofascial release, therapeutics. Like, I have a ton of different categories. And like I said, over 100 classes on my website now, where if you are just starting out, if you're nervous about going to a yoga class or you don't have a lot around you, you can just get onto the website and practice at home. You just need Wi-Fi and you can practice.
Great. And what's that website?
It's KelleyEdwardsYoga.com. And my first name is Kelley. It has an extra E in it. So KelleyEdwardsYoga.com.
Wonderful. So if there's a closing comment, or you want to say something we haven't even touched on yet, or go back and highlight something from our conversation so far, what would that be?
Again, I just think get out of your brain, get into your heart, get into your body, find moments to pause, to listen, to get quiet. It doesn't have to be 20 minutes, 60 minutes. It doesn't have to be a big chunk of your day. 1 minute of quiet, of breath work can change your whole day. So it can be more simple than we believe it to be, to come back into healing, to come back into ourselves. But the body is intelligent. Be in the body. That's what I would say.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us. It's a delightful to meet you. And the Kelley Edwards Yoga, 2 L's, 2 E's in Kelley. And I look forward to following your work. I hope that you continue to keep us updated if you start a new project, or when you finish your, what is it? You said 1,000-hour training?
1,000 hours, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Kelley Edwards is a 500-hour Yoga Alliance certified instructor with over a decade of practice and continuing education in many styles, including gentle and chair, power, yin and restorative, myofascial release, therapeutics, and meditation styles like mindfulness and yoga nidra. She is passionate about leading classes and sessions that are safe and accessible for everyone, while challenging the way you think about yourself and what you're capable of. She has found her calling guiding others into an empowering relationship with themselves. Her sessions are educational and fun, strong and graceful. Currently, Kelley is working towards becoming a yoga therapeutic specialist, a 1,000-hour certification. This will allow Kelley to work alongside healthcare professionals, bridging the medical world with yoga. She spends her time teaching public classes in person and on Zoom, working with private clients and corporations, and training others to become yoga instructors. She has an on-demand studio, Om Sweet Home, and is owner and author of Be Moved Yoga Teacher Training School and 200-Hour Manual.
You've been listening to the On Your Mind podcast, offered by Journey's Dream, where we support people through mental health challenges to a place of true and lasting well-being. If you love our show, we invite you to visit onyourmindpodcast.org to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our helpful resources. Thank you for listening.